So hi everyone and welcome to this new episode of FFM the Soundtrack Podcast. And I'm George, obviously, and today I'm here with Shota Nakama, composer, guitarist, and also the creator of Game Orchestra, who I've had the pleasure of meeting on a very cool project that I also want to talk to you about. So hi and welcome.
Thank you, George. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for inviting me over.
Our pleasure. Absolutely our pleasure. So as a start, I wanted to start with a very political question, obviously.
Yes.
So you studied at Berklee. And
yes, I did.
Tell us, how do people there react to video game music?
So I think I'm the right person to get the question. So I went to Berklee only for 2 years because I transferred a bunch of credits from this community college I went in Seattle, and I came to Berklee in 2005, and then I finished middle of 2005, later 2005, and then finished by 2008, and when I started going to Berklee, there was no video game program. There was one class that a teacher taught, but it was just not prominent at all. And also, if you look at the scene back then, there was just I think Video Games Live was only being born. And Final Fantasy concert was starting to happen, and so it's just video game music scene just wasn't really there. We would go to see an event, and then you see cover bands, but nothing major. So then a friend of mine who is also a composer in video game scene, he was in the same class with me. He wanted to start up the video game music club. So it was just purely a club in school. And he's like, hey, do you want to work with me for this club? And I was like, sure, why not? So I started doing all the stuff with him. And then there was another guy, Alex also joined. He's a pretty prominent film composer in Hollywood now. And so three of us started organizing meetings and panels and all the things in school. Then quickly we gained 100 participants and stuff in the club. So every week the room was filled, and we would just sit around and just talk about all the love for video game music and what's your favorite soundtracks, and have you met this person or that, and all that stuff. It was very nerdy. And
like this podcast, which is basically
pretty much, yeah. And but sometimes the nerdy stuff is pretty good. I have good memories of that. And so then Berklee, at the time in the film scoring department, which we belong to, and the chair of the film scoring department, Don Carlin, he was like, you know what, this is great. So let me just hire a video game music teacher. So he hired one, and then things started happening in Berklee. So he was this teacher, Michael Sweet, was a part-time teacher, but quickly he became a full-time teacher, and then another teacher was brought in, and so he just suddenly you started seeing this emergence of the genre.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of my Berklee time, I founded Video Game Orchestra, and then we started doing concerts. And first we did a concert at this small chapel, and we packed the place. But it was a free show. We just said it's a free concert, anyone can come in, and it was packed. And then next venue we booked, it was 600 seats or 700, 600 seats, and we packed the place too. So then we performed at the 1,000-seat venue, and then it was sold out too. And then it's just in Boston, this whole video game scene was just starting to pop up, and it was just quite interesting to see that the evolution of this whole thing.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is that when I was in university, people kind of look down at film music, and I don't think they even knew about video game music. So I was wondering how things are like abroad.
Yeah, definitely. So back then, the video game music was sort of like underlooked, I think. I would say, because we're talking about 16 years ago or something like that, right? So it just wasn't a mature genre, or at least from the perspective of the adults back then.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember when I started the video game orchestra, and I would try to hit up my friends or hit up students from conservatories and stuff, because Boston is a big student town. And then I would talk to people and I say hey, do you want to play in this group? I call it Video Game Orchestra. We play music from video games, but blah, 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 blah. And they were like, video game music? No way. And I would literally get this to my face. They would say stuff like that. But I was like, in the end, let's see who's laughing. And
sure.
So yeah. And getting back to the video game music club thing in Berklee too. I think initially all the people who took the classes, they were primarily freshmen, sophomore, the younger people. And it's just a lot of people just didn't know the video game music was a genre, really. And because the way you write is different, right? It's all interactive. Yep. And especially nowadays, because back then, yes, it was 8-bit, 16-bit. And I understand there were limitations. But now it's you can do anything. And with the technology, the compositional techniques and ideas just exploded. And,
yes,
it's just you have to be trained in that way to be able to write.
And have you also found something that there is a difference between, if we say soundtrack as a genre? Do you think that video game soundtrack fans are different than film score?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think the main difference is the film scores are linear, right? From the beginning, if you start the music, it just ends at some point. But video game music is often looped, unless you're talking about the cutscene music. But there are things you need to do to not distract the players, because if your music is too much, then it kind of distracts when you're playing, right? And you don't want that. So there's a subtle how should I say, there are more things to consider from the player's perspective, and it's just not the same, right?
And do you think that when people are playing the game, very often, they kind of learn the music and music becomes part of their experience, opposed to films where you watch it and it's over?
Yeah, and because if you're playing Mario, you die in the first stage 10,000 times.
Even more.
You get good.
Even more. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you're listening to the music for 20,000 times, maybe for your case. And so then if you grow up with that, you'll never ever forget that melody. And also the difference between the Japanese video game music and also the Western video game music is, I think a lot of the Japanese video game compositions tend to be more melody driven.
Yep.
Because a lot of people in Japan, they like more catchy melody stuff. So I'm sure you've done a lot of recording sessions with Japanese clients, and you know that often the music kind of stands out a bit more.
Yep.
It's in America, a lot of the big titles, they tend to follow the path of the films.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's all underscore.
Yeah.
And it's almost they're aiming for a full immersive experience into this world of video game music, but video games. But for the Japanese audience, I think it's more people tend to enjoy each element separately instead of like, just one full experience. Yeah.
Before I ask you about the video game orchestra, which is, I think, very important, first and foremost, are you a gamer yourself? Do you play games?
I mean, like, I can tell you that I've invested a fair amount of my lifetime. There was a phase, because I don't play as much anymore. I play like, as much as I can. But when I was elementary school, middle school, I'd say like that was, middle school was probably my peak of like hardcore gaming. And I was a huge fan of RPG games. So like any RPG games, of course, like Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, all those like big titles too. But like any RPG games, I would grab them. And I have this like very bad habit. When I start a game, I have to beat it. I gotta beat it, and I just never stop. And so like I would play like 8 hours, 10 hours a day until I stop, until I the whole thing's done. And it's a bad habit, like especially now. So like that's why I don't play as many games anymore, because like I know when I start, I will just go dive in and I'll never come back, and that's just bad for the business stuff.
When I was in university, beginning of university or something, me and a group of friends, we decided that it would be really cool to play Icewind Dale. Have you played Icewind Dale?
Wait, I don't know that. Maybe there's a different Japanese title for the game.
Well, it's like Baldur's Gate. Do you know Baldur's Gate?
Yeah.
So it's like a Dungeons and Dragons based. It is the same. It was using advanced Dungeons and Dragons engine. So anyway, it's an RPG, but one of those that are very lengthy ones with like all those quests, and I guess they had like 30 or 50 writers on a salary. So anyway, we were playing this game for like the three of us. We played this for months basically without even going on the main quest, and then we kind of went to the end of it with this party, and then one of my friends, he was like, that's I'm bored with this game, so I'll quit. And we're like, you're quit? No. Fuck. We've been playing for like 3 months, and we're at the end of it, and we don't know the storyline. There's a storyline and story arc that we follow. So I kind of I'm like you about
and also back then, because I'm 40 years old now, so I'm in the generation of like just really seeing the evolution from NES to, or Famicom, I should say, Famicom to Super Famicom and PlayStation 1. And I saw that like in real time. I remember vividly when Super Nintendo came out. And it was like 16-bit. Oh my God, it looks so good. Like the music sounds so real. And we had this like very hyped reaction. And there were so many great games in Japan that never came out here. Like there was just so many great games. And like any games you pick up from a Squaresoft back then, like you just like it was a golden hit. And any stuff, like anything you pick up from like just random companies, Konami, Capcom, like any of them, like the games were great. And then you just go dive in and you play, and you just never come back from the the world.
So you basically the club created the video game orchestra, or
no, like the video game orchestra was a very separate thing that I did, but the club definitely existed before that. Yeah, and I was a part of it, and I definitely like there was an inspiration from the club, and also the soundtracks I rediscovered through the club. And because there was a time of my life I didn't play any games at all. I would say from the age of maybe 16 till 25, 26, because at the age of 15 I discovered the guitar. and music of, hard rock, heavy metal, and my interest completely just shifted.
Sure.
Because like until the day before guitar discovery, I was like fucking playing like 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, just gaming all day long. But then when I got struck by this lightning of the Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, Van Halen, Ozzy Osbourne, and all those like just great rock and roll stars, and that was it. And I just shifted my interest completely. Just like one day, just snapped, and I'm like, nope, I'm just gonna play guitar. So I just stayed in my room, just played and played and played it all day long, and sometimes all night long. And my family didn't like that, but who cares?
Yes.
So yeah, and well, I guess my parents were happy because for their generation, gaming is like, oh, that's like lazy, like just awful. It's not business. Like it's just like it's because my dad is a doctor, so like they see it from like a very traditional point of view.
Sure.
And yeah, and also like when I came to the US at the age of 18, I spoke no English. So I couldn't play any games because I didn't understand what was going on in the screen. So there was one time I tried to buy a console, and it was expensive because I was a student too. But then like even when I saw the games, I was like, how do I understand any storylines if I appreciate? I don't know. Now I do, but like back then I just didn't. So I never. Like I didn't get back until the video game music club, because when the club happened, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna go back and just like have fun with the games, and I did, and it felt good. And then I was pretty inspired by re-inspired by the soundtrack, because I remember like when you had the flip phones and stuff. Sorry,
sure.
I'm talking a lot about this because I have so many memories. Remember like when you had the flip phones and you could program the ringtones?
Yes.
On your
Oh
own?
yeah, that was cool. That was super cool.
Yeah. So I would just like add like a Dragon Quest theme and like all that stuff. And like people call me and like like I was the only one playing the Dragon Quest music like from the phone, and it just like I've had like those moments where like video game music really stood out for me, and then like it was something that I thought of first whenever there are opportunities like oh, you can program your ringtone. I was like, Dragon Quest, it's cool. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I also think that maybe there's something in common between playing an instrument and also playing video games, because both at first you suck at it, so you need to practice, and your example with Mario, which is getting better and not giving up on something, so that you develop your skills. And now that you mentioned the guitar, how does it feel to work with a name like Jason Becker?
Oh yeah, so Jason Becker is just I remember going to a record shop back in my home, Okinawa. It's a small island, very small island, but somehow the rock and roll music is pretty big. Western rock and roll music is pretty big, probably because we have like a very big American military base. So we were influenced by them. And I remember going to this like old school record shop that was in town, and I saw Jason Becker's album, and I was like, oh, this guy must be good because he looks great. So, like remember like when there was a time like when you just like saw the jacket of the album and just decided to just go for it. Yes. And it was just like one of those moments, and I just bought his record, and apparently this record was like made when he was 17 or 18, and I was like, holy shit, like so like in 1 year I have to become like that.
Yeah.
I was like, no way. But yeah, like I've been a huge fan of his work for a long time, and I've read a lot of rock and roll magazines back then, so I knew like what happened to him, and it's sad, but it doesn't describe what he is really, the term sad, because he's such a positive, happy dude, and when you meet him, he's like full of love and happiness, and he's just genuinely happy to see you. And of course, through his caretaker, he would talk to you with his eye movements, and like for him to just have like a honest conversation with somebody, like, you know, somebody just like popped up and said like, hey, I can help you. And it's like, it's pretty like incredible, you know. And just seeing him and seeing all the guitars, like he has decorated his room with like all his guitars. It's like, wow, the legend really like lived here. And like I see the history of everything, and it's, I was just becoming a fanboy. Like when I saw him, I was like, "Oh my god, can I take a picture with you?"
Yeah, I can imagine. This is a very nice example of, I would say, the possibilities like in front of, I would even say, the human soul. It might sound a bit cheesy, but what people are actually capable of doing, and so this is the album Triumphant Hearts, and you did the arranging together with Jason. So could you tell us a bit about how you worked together? Because that's a very specific, I would say, such situation.
Yep. So what happened first was there was a crowdfunding campaign that he posted on Indiegogo, and they were trying to fund this album. And I said, you know what, I think I can offer some help. And I told them, hey, I messaged the person who was running the campaign, and I said, hey, I've been a huge fan. I can do this like mixture of like hybrid scores, like orchestra rock stuff. That's my specialty, and I don't need any money. I want to help. So that's really how it started. And then I had a phone call with his engineer, who actually sits with him to like work on input all the MIDI and everything. Yeah. And so I had a call with him. He's like, you know what? Okay, let's see. Maybe like have you come over to Jason's house, and then just like we'll just talk. And so I did that. I flew over to San Francisco. Oakland is where he lives, and I went to visit his house and just like had a conversation. And I said like, you know what? Give me all the stuff. Give me what you have, and I will write all the scores, and let's see where it goes. So I wrote all the scores on the finale, imported all the MIDI that he had with like, you know, hundreds of tracks. Yes. Of course. And because like he had like all the articulations like separated. Yes. So it's like, yeah. There's a lot. And so I first transcribed everything, and then like I started like arranging all that stuff. And then I sent out the scores and also like finale export. Then I had my friends just record like some of the parts, and I told them like what the situation was, and they were like, you know, like no way, like I would be happy to help, like I want to record for this. So the woodwind players I always hire, and also string quartet, I know like they helped recording really for free to show Jason how it sounds, because like sometimes, you know, MIDI doesn't really like convert. And especially if it's like a finale export, because I didn't play the full sequence. Yeah. So then we did like one session. I sent a video of the playing, and he was like, oh, this is great. And then I flew over to San Francisco again before the recording, and we had several student string players coming over to Jason's place. And then like basically they rehearsed the pieces. They rehearsed for Jason. Yep. And so Jason would tell, oh, can we change this? Can we change that? So like we had to be pretty creative, but like then like it was a lot of back and forth from me physically, but like I was just like so happy to be involved with like anything he did. So So then like eventually the scores are approved, and I told them, hey, we're gonna go to Bulgaria because it doesn't seem like a possibility to it doesn't seem possible to record in San Francisco. And also Jason couldn't like physically go to those locations. Yeah. So I said like, you know what, like let's just do it in Bulgaria. And I know this guy George who is amazing, and they were like, okay, you know what, like let's just do it. So that's really how it happened. And then we remember like we had the Source Live back then, I think, and also Skype
video,
Skype video, and they were able to monitor the whole thing, and the entire family was just like gathering in Jason's place, and like everybody was just watching, and it was pretty awesome.
I think that the Jason posted a tweet about this, and we actually got approached or ambushed by a bunch of journalists that came
really? Yeah, I didn't know that.
They came to the studio to interview us about like local TV. Yeah. So it was kind of strange as well.
Wow. Yeah. No, like I think that was definitely one of the hardest gigs I've done. But also I think that's one of the gigs that brought me more happiness.
Sure.
It's just being able to help my guitar god.
Yes.
And also just have a relationship with him and his family in such a like musical format was just so satisfying to me. And for me, for my personal reasons, it was an important gig too. Yeah.
And you've also, I suppose, when you're arranging some of the like video game soundtracks, have you also worked with any of the composers, like for example Nobuo or
I've had an opportunity to share stage with Nobuo Uematsu.
No.
So like I had a concert back in 2010 at this like big anime convention. He was a guest, and so we played One Winged Angel, like his famous Sephiroth song, and for the encore. And then like he just like hopped onto the stage and started like pounding on the organ. Like he's like amazing B3 organ player. And because like he comes from the Deep Purple background too. Sure. And he's like just like so spot on, and it was pretty amazing because like I've been a big fan of him for a long time. So yeah, and also like I worked with like other prominent Japanese video game composers too, so I can tell you all those too.
I suppose that they're happy, obviously, with their music being arranged. But were there any occasions where they would say no, that's not the sound that we would appreciate?
I've had some rewriting, and there was this one gig I vividly remember, and I'm not gonna name it because you'll find out what it is. This is like a AAA title we worked on, and this I wouldn't even say he's a music director because he was coming from the music background. He was just he was a project lead who happened to manage the music side as well for some reason. And he's like, hey, can you write a song that's what did he say? Like, oh yes, this is what he said. So he said like, I want a song like Radiohead and Oasis. and we're all like so perplexed. We're like, what are you talking about? Like, what is that? What? And I just came up with something and I sent it to him, and he's like, no, this is like close but not quite it. not quite there. And I sent like the second iteration, and he's like, no, yeah, it's closer, but not. And then the third one, he's like, no, like now we're going off the rail. Like fourth, fifth, the sixth. I wrote like 6 times for this song, and eventually I told him, like, I realized he just doesn't understand, like he had this like attachment to the temp music, whatever he had with Radiohead or like Oasis or something. So I told him, hey, you know what? This is gonna go on forever, so we should decide which version to go with. And I think this version is the best. And guess what? It made it to the soundtrack.
Nice.
Yeah. So that, and also there's one gig I can mention. I'm not gonna mention this, that the name of the song or the game. There was a client who wanted a choir. So we got all the choir people, because I work with like the same people always for the choir. And the composer was like, I want the Latin lyrics. And I was like, yes, you got it. And I told him, hey, can you give me the keywords? And he gave me like a bunch of keywords. Oh, like this scene's like this and that, and then the feeling, emotion is this and that. He gave me like a bunch of adjectives, and I went to the Google Translator and just like converted to Latin. And just like assigned them to all the notes. So it's like complete bullshit Latin.
Yeah.
If you speak Latin, you like, oh, fuck is this?
Yeah. All the Romans will be offended. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I didn't tell anybody. Like I didn't tell anybody. Like I think the choir was like, something is like a little strange here, but like they just, it was a gig, so like we just did the gig. And eventually, I think 10 years passed. I finally told the composer, I said, hey, like you left the company already, so let me tell you this.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh my God.
Yeah. But I seriously doubt there would be any like ancient Romans alive playing video games that would
exactly, especially in Japan, right?
Yeah.
Like if you there's like ancient Roman guy in Japan playing games and say like, what is this? Yeah.
So, and how did tell me more about the like the video game orchestra.
Yeah, so it's just like a passion project that I started, and one day I thought maybe it's fun to play music from video games in a live setting, because again, like back then, like the scene, the video game music live concert scene just wasn't really existing. And so I started, and then we quickly gained a lot of attention, and we started getting inquiries from PAX, bunch of anime conventions, and we were just like, we had this momentum, and we kept booking, and we started going to like China. We did a show in Mexico. We did shows in like Canada, Japan, and Taiwan, like pretty much everywhere. And like I'm just like skipping a lot of stories, because like, there's just so many. Like
sure.
It's like when a passion project becomes business, then that there's a friction, like everything just almost falls apart, and then like you have to kind of assemble everything and just evolve.
Yep.
But like there were a lot of human dramas, I gotta say. But I stayed strong, and I just kept going, and lost some friends, gained some new friends, and lost some friends, gained some new friends. And over the course of the years, a lot of things happened. But we have been fortunate to just like, keep ourselves in the scene, and we get to perform in a lot of places. And actually, because of the video game orchestra, a lot of the composer friends started asking me, hey, can we record with you? Because we know you write scores. We know you have, trusting group of musicians. So can we just hire them? And that's how it happened. And also, like, a lot of people started talking to me to produce their concerts, and primarily in the video game world and also the anime world. They're like, hey, we have this anime, we want to do a concert, can you produce this? we have this video game, can you produce a show? And because like my team can do like from arranging to like the very end of the production.
Yeah.
So we can do like, recording, like live concert, hire all the people, mix, master, and just deliver like the live recording, live video.
Sure.
And we can go even that far. So it's just a unique production that you don't really see a lot of places. And specifically in terms of music, I've always been a symphonic metal fan. so I'm pretty good at the hybrid scores, like orchestra, band.
Yeah.
And I know what you need to do to make it sound good. So I think a lot of people know me as that kind of person. And then like they come to me and just say, hey, can you just do the whole thing and just come up with like great concert? And
did you learn this? Did you learn this at Berklee or?
No. Like I definitely didn't. So like if anybody knows me from Berklee, they would remember me as a guy in the hallway, always playing classical guitar, and also somebody who I think my teachers remember me probably as a troublemaker, like who was more vocal than any Asian students.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, like I learned a fair amount of things in Berklee, but like it was very much on the surface of things. The business, live shows, like all those were acquired by doing them, because like it's just impossible to learn everything from school, right? Like yes, you can prepare yourself as much as you can, but like it's not going to teach you everything. Like your knowledge will become like real knowledge when you experience things. So I'm the kind of person who just like say, you know what, let's just do it, see what happens. Like I would just like jump in and just do that. True. And I guess like that worked out quite well for myself, and I learned a lot. And I learned a lot by getting yelled at from the players. They're like, you can't play this, you can't do this. And also like making financial mistakes. And I guess like it's a less smart way of doing things sometimes, but a lot of street learning.
Yeah, but you learn more that way, I think.
Exactly. And also I'm one of the very few people from Berklee, my time, like who's still in the industry. And also like looking back, like all my Asian friends, they all left. I'm one of the like very, very, very few people who's still here making music.
And how did I suppose the pandemic was a heavy hit on the...
Well, for the live concert scene, yes. But for us, I'm pretty sure you're the same too, but the production work was just like flooded, right? Like we had more gigs than ever. Like we were so busy. And because like, the games, like they kept getting released. The movies, they kept coming out. So like somebody had to do the music, and a lot of the companies called me and called my production, and like we worked on a lot of things. And like last year in particular, we worked on like Sega Sonic's 30th year anniversary concert, and also, which actually you guys helped a bit, and also Marvel's concert, online concert, we did that too. We worked on the Taiwanese big featured film. We worked on a number of things, and I counted all the scores I wrote last year, and it's like over 100. Like I wrote over 100 orchestra scores, and I'm like, holy crap, that's a lot.
Yeah,
and it's just like me alone, and my team had to do all kinds of things too.
Sure.
Yeah, and we had like online concert, like our staff. We released 2 albums, and it's like it was a great year, like really great year. And I had tons of fun.
This proves that maybe nowadays we live in a time where the composer's job is maybe he has a lot of like opportunities, because back then you'd have like Bach, for example, writing for for Sunday's Mass or something, or for like Count whoever, a symphony. But nowadays you get movies, you get like applications on your phone, games on the phone. So and that's why I think that like the music has evolved in a way. Also, obviously video game music and film music. I would even go as far as to say that film music is now kind of in a decline and video game music is rising, and people appreciate it much more, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the difference is that the industry growth, right? So like movies are becoming a very different form, because we used to all go to the movie theaters to enjoy movies, but now with subscription, it's like you just stay home and watch, and you experience it in different formats. But the games, I would say also a generational thing too. So like, for example, my parents, there were no games for them. Yeah. Like there was just zero video game, and and maybe like when they were in their 30s, they had Space Invader coming out or something. So they didn't grow up with it. And the people who are in the 40s and the 50s, or particularly in this age range, like we grew up with like a good old video games, right? And now that like everybody under us, like anybody younger than us, they grew up like they're native gamers. Sure. Like they grew up with like apps. Like you see kids playing like iPad games, and you would have never expected that to happen. And I have this interesting conversation. I had an interesting conversation with this like college girl in Japan. Like this is several years ago. So I was talking to a bunch of college students just to get an idea of like what they play and stuff. And they were all, of course, like talking about, oh, like this is like biggest game in Japan right now. And they were telling me all kinds of information. And I was talking to this girl who was 20 years old or so. And I asked her, so how much do you spend for games? And she was like, maybe like $50 per month. And I was like, in my time, like girls spending $50 per month for a game? Like that's unheard of, yes. Right? Like it was only like only the nerdiest guys who bought like 3-4 games a month. Yeah. And it's becoming just so like it's casualized now, and apps are just so easy to download, and it's like you can play anywhere, like especially in Japan, like you take a train every day or trains every day. So like when you commute, you play games. That's why apps are big hits in Japan. Yeah. A lot of people just play games to kill time. So like even college girls, like she's just like average college girl. She's not in like tech. She's nowhere near in the tech field, and she's not in the entertainment side, but like she was just like, telling me like, oh yeah, like I just casually spend like, this much a month. I was like, so that's a change, right? Because like if you look at like 30 years ago, you would have never seen a girl spending that much money for a game. And I appreciate this, like, diversity in the scene as well. Sure. And that means like, I think the game industry is doing something right. And I suppose that back when I was in school, if we saw a girl like that, probably we would have started, fighting who would marry her at the spot. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, what are the, in your opinion, the challenges now? Because we are surrounded by technology, and it's so easy to write with MIDI, and everything is in the samples, everything is in your computer. So, what are the challenges during a recording session and working with live musicians?
Yeah, so a lot of the current composers tend to be, a lot of them, like they started from sequencing, I think, instead of performance background. Because back then, like you had to play piano, you had to play guitar or some kind of instruments to write music, and it was very, very rare to find somebody who wrote music without playing anything. So. And also, like many performed, and you wouldn't just go write music and instead of actually performing something, right? So, but now it's very common to see composers who just don't really perform anything, and they just write and they click notes in. And yes, like while there are exceptions, like there are like crazy talented people in that way too. But at the same time, when it comes to recording, like somebody always has to translate the MIDI into a playable format. And I feel like that's I wouldn't say disappointing, but like there are things that some of those composers need to learn, because some knowledge is purely physical, mechanical. Like violin sounds good in this range. Violin can play loud in this range and stuff like that. That's an acquired knowledge. Like you can just go to see a book and you can study that. And if you have like a general idea of like how the instruments and also how the players think, I'm totally cool. But like there are some composers they don't really understand that. So I do suggest every composer to perform and just to see their music or see somebody else's music from a player's perspective. And I think that's incredibly helpful, and I truly believe that will grow their music as well. And I'm sure like you guys must have gone through a lot of projects like that. Like you get scores, you're like, what is this?
We've even had some things that are just physically impossible to do. Due to the instrument or the like limitations of the instrument. I've actually started like playing the violin. I'm very, very bad at it, but that personally kind of taught me, because I'm a piano player, I'm a keyboard player, so the way I look at at music is very, very different. For example, a good friend of mine here at the studio, who's a guitarist like yourself, he absolutely hates me for writing anything for the guitar, because the way I think about it from a keyboard perspective. So I agree with this, that you need to learn things, or at least get an idea about how an instrument works.
Right. Absolutely. And also I think with the AI and all that technology stuff coming up, I think at some point we'll get back to the human performance. And we can spend so much time sequencing a string part. Let's say like we would spend 20 hours sequencing just a 1 minute song or something. But then, like, if you hire like one good string section, they could just do it in one take.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're like, what did I do? And I just think that like when the music is played by humans, that's just like, it's way better, and you get to work with like all those, crazy talented, awesome people who bring diversity into your thoughts, and your music is just like multiplied, like it's elevated. And I like that. And that's why I try to like really push for live recordings all the time. And even like, just one guitar, even like one violin, like even anything, I just think unless intended, I feel like we should always try to hire live musicians and record stuff. If it's like EDM, like there's no way, but But for orchestral stuff, like I think well-written orchestral scores, when those are performed, holy shit, you can't get anything better,
Yeah, that's right. It doesn't matter how good like a programmer you are, like a programmer, I mean like producer programmer. I think that you could never get people to cry with a sampled, for example, strings orchestra.
Right. Well, and you develop the samples, so coming from you is a big statement.
Yeah, I think they're very good at developing ideas, showcasing ideas to
Yes.
to different people, maybe even sometimes staying in the final mix, because we have to face it, we have different budgets, we have different situations. Every project is different, but conveying a human emotion, that's for humans to do, not for zeros and ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said, it's funny because like I always say the same thing. I always say zeros and ones. Like I say it the same, exactly same way. I 100% agree. And like I come from like a live show background. I've always played live shows, and like I kind of like segued into the production scene as well. But I always valued working with people, like playing with people, because like you have this almost like intimate spark of ideas, inspirations you get from the players. And when somebody plays like lick, you're like, oh shit, that's great, let me just do this, and like that kind of stuff. That's the stuff I love. And I'm actually like supposed to write for this soundtrack, this video game that's coming out, I think next year. But the director of the game, he asked me to write the opening song and ending song, like the vocal songs. So I told him like, hey, I will do it only if we can go into the studio, everybody at the same time, and I'll create the structure of the song and everything, but I want to go into the studio and just rock out until like things come out. And he's like, yeah, like let's just do that old school way.
I think that's the way to do it, because you talked about Pink Floyd, and you talked about Led Zeppelin, and there's a huge difference between those bands and the stuff that we listen to nowadays, even in pop music. I mean,
yeah, totally. And it's just like I was actually like at the Motley Crue and Def Leppard concert last weekend. And I love the 80s, and just like watching them still playing and hitting all the high notes with the singing. And I'm like, why are they so good? And I was like, that's because they went through all the stuff, and like they weren't capable of fixing anything.
Sure.
And they had no choice, and they just went and did it. And so that raw talent they had already back then was just like, it kept growing and they kept evolving. And that's why like at the age of 60, they're still like just doing what they love to do. And like I went back to listen to the records, and they sound so raw, and just like it sounds incredible.
Yeah.
And now everything's like fixed, edited, and like just like I think it's great that we all have tools. Like if you have one laptop or like even one iPhone, you can make great music. It liberated like this like barrier of financial barrier, I guess, like because back then like you had to go to the studio to do anything. So I think it's a great thing, but I hope we go into the right direction as humanity. We go back and just really rethink of how we should make music. And well, there's no should or must, but how we want to make music. And I think doing it with people, like doing it as a band or group ensemble, I think that's the way to go. Like, I don't think that industry will fade away ever. I don't think AI and everything will ever replace live concert.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. And also these are, I also think that maybe we're at the stage where these are not just tools. They kind of become like chains. Maybe not chains. That's a bit of a harsh word, but those tools that provide you an easy way to work also give you the psychological perspective that you need to make things absolutely perfect, because now you can do this, and sometimes you don't need to. And it can be applied to pop music and also to soundtracks even. And speaking of soundtracks, 3 like final questions, like how do you say this? Like speed questions. So
Yes.
the first one is about soundtracks. So what are your 3 top soundtracks, either film or game?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so hard. But I can tell you, in the film industry, I would say Back to the Future is like the king of the king for me.
Yes.
And I even have scores actually. And if you look at the scores, like they're not like, there are a lot of like the empty places. Like he tacit woodwinds for certain cues, and like, but it sounds so massive and full and rich and just sparkly, and it gives like, it has full of dreams. Like it just shows like what the Hollywood sound was back then.
Yeah.
I've always loved this soundtrack, and E.T. is definitely pretty up there too. And I don't know any human beings can write that kind of thing. I don't know how.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for video games, I would say I've always said God of War. I love like the massive sound, and it's like it's metal, but just with the orchestra.
That's right. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
We actually recorded a couple of years ago. Recorded the new versions of Back to the Future with for Lego Dimensions. I think was the game code, and I was really curious to see all those scores from from manuscripts and transcribed and made in a way that you can actually see the orchestration and see what you're hearing, which is in the case of Silvestri or John Williams, there are many layers that you cannot hear, and they add like a certain depth to it.
Yeah, and like Alan Silvestri is a guitar player.
Yes,
he's,
yes.
And I'm like, how do you write something so good as a guitar player?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of God of War, do you like the Bear McCreary's take on God of War?
No, actually, like I didn't play the new one because I made a stupid decision. I tell you. So when PS5 was announced, I was like, "Oh shit! I have to sell my PS4 and just get ready for it." So I sold my PS4, and then I got the store credit,
Yeah.
And I was like, I was just waiting, and then PS5 came out, but like you can't buy it anywhere.
Yes, that's right.
So I haven't played any of this new stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And what would your dream project be, personally?
Oh my God, it's a tough one, but I love collaborating with this is like kind of like off the tangent from like video game music or film music, but I do want to collaborate more with the rock and roll, like my band heroes, guitar heroes, because I want to contribute like Jason Becker stuff, something like that. Like that kind of stuff is like really my forte, and also those are the people I grew up listening to, like the 80s guitar heroes. I would love to work with them, and any of them, like Steve Vai or like Zakk Wylde or like any of them, and any of those like guitar heroes or 80s bands, if they need any orchestral stuff, I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say like, I have to do this.
Well, I do hope that Steve Vai is listening to this podcast. Which
I hope so. Yeah, and so like soundtrack stuff is great, and I would love to work on like any soundtracks. Possibly, if I can work with Alan Silvestri, hallelujah, Jesus. Nice. Yes.
I would love to hear like your rendition of Back to the Future live with rock elements.
Yeah. Oh man, like it will definitely have guitars.
Yeah. and but you also actually you worked with Steve Vai because he performed
some guitar solo.
in Triumphant Heart. So in a way, you've already accomplished
Yeah, just a little bit, but like I gotta meet him in person and just do this.
Yeah.
And sorry, like I want to mention one thing. So Back to the Future score, like if you listen to that theme, and there was like distinct moment like where it shows Alan Silvestri as a guitar player. So at the end of the very last hit of the cue, it goes that da 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 da, right? Like, and then there's like a massive double bass gliss in between. And you would only do that as a guitar player. You would only do that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like none of the orchestra players would do that. And just like, I was like, oh shit, like you're a guitar player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that for the end of this podcast, I kind of wish that it could last a bit longer, but I was asked to keep these under 1 hour.
Which is, sorry, like we went over already.
No, it's me because I love nerding out. So just as an end, what would be the advice that you would give to young Shota if you started out today?
Yeah, so I would, man, I don't think I will say anything about music. I would tell myself that go out there, experience anything. Because like music, you can learn from school, you can learn from friends, you can learn from doing it. But like the whole life experience, I truly believe that like if you experience more things in life that will enrich you as a person, hence the music that comes out from you will be like enriched as well. So go travel, go and start learning English before 18. And go travel all over the world like sooner. Just go eat great food, just like jam with everyone. Just learn as many instruments as you can and just start playing violin and brass, so you know more about those instruments. Like, just experience-based stuff. And I would, I would say those things. I would probably not say any academic stuff because I'm a middle school dropout myself too. So I didn't go to high school, and I didn't need that experience to be who I am right now. So yeah. Just like do what I'm doing sooner than waiting. Yeah.
I was also, when I was in school, I went to my piano teacher. She took me to the music school here in Sofia. So I played a couple of pieces in front of like a jury or something. And so they kind of asked me to become part of the music school. So my mother, she kind of, because she's not a musician, so she came to me and said, well, do you want to do this? Do you want to finish music school? Do you think that's important for you? And I was like, no way at all. I mean, I would never do anything with music in my life, I swear. And look at me now, geeking about music. So sometimes it's education, in my opinion, is not as important as the drive and the passion for something that you do.
Yep. Yeah. Fully agree.
All right. Thank you so much. Arigato.
Thanks
you.
A lot.
For being part of this podcast. And I hope we can do it again.
Absolutely. And I hope I get to go and see you in Bulgaria.
Now.
If I can go next week, I'll go.
Yeah. Lovely. You're always welcome, and especially now that the borders are kind of open, we miss the human contact of meeting people.
Absolutely. Like remote is great, but that's not how we should do music always.
That's right. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Cool, man.
Cheers.
Awesome. All right. Thanks.